We like to imagine a single hand in the dark, a fingertip dipped in ash, a line trembling against stone. Today, we scroll and swipe. Images arrive faster than breath. Back then, a picture arrived like weather slow, deliberate, heavy with meaning. But that's not all. To truly understand the first human who drew, we have to step into a world where pictures were not decoration, but survival, prayer, memory, and dare an act of turning time into something that could be touched. Start with the contrast. Now, a drawing is a pastime, an assignment, a post. Then, a drawing was a doorway. We teach children to make marks before letters. They lay claim to reality by tracing it. Our ancestors did the same, only their paper was stone, their pencils were bone, their inks were earth and flame. The surprise is not that we learned to draw. The surprise is that drawing changed what we are. The world of the first picture was cold and bright. Ice pressed down like a low sky. Herds moved like rivers across the grass. Caves held the memory of heat. There were no canvases, but there were walls. Pale limestone, soft chalk, the lava-smooth sheen of basaltic flow. There were pigments, red ochre from iron-rich earth, yellow from hydrated iron, black from charcoal and manganese, white from ground bone and clay. There were brushes made from chewed twigs and animal hair. There were fingers and palms. There were lips and hollow bones for blowing colour like breath. Most of all, there was intention, to show, to share, to stay. We want a name. Stone offers silence. So the first human who drew is a pattern more than a person. A chorus of hands leaving ghosts of themselves on walls. A ritual of red around open palms that says, I am here. I was here. I will be here when only my ash remains. Hand stencils are the oldest signatures and the most anonymous. A palm pressed to stone, a mouth that turns pigment to mist, a negative halo that refuses to fade. What is a drawing if not a way to defy forgetting? What is a stencil if not a vow? To truly understand the first picture that mattered, imagine 3 scenes. Scene 1, a shallow chamber, a ceiling low enough to touch with your breath. A small fire hums, smoke writes its own story against the rock, then collapses into dark. A child watches an elder grind ochre with fat in a scallop shell, mixing earth into a paste that glows like fresh blood. The elder wets a wall with spit, smoothing a patch that shines. They press a hand and blow pigment blooming around fingers like a dawn seen from inside the sky. When the hand pulls away, its absence is louder than any presence. It looks like a miracle. It feels like a decision. Scene 2. A long gallery deeper in the hill, air cooler, sound thick. Torches throw animals onto the curve of stone. A line becomes a back, a dot becomes an eye, a smear becomes motion. The artist exploit the swell of the rock to put muscle under hide, to make a bison's shoulder roll, to make a horse breathe. They scratch with flint, then wash the groove with pigment, then shade with soot healed into the grit of the wall. These are not sketches. They are rehearsals for reality, or rehearsals for memory, or both. The animals shine in the light like omens and instructions. Scene 3. A side chamber, half collapsed, dangerous to enter. There is silence, except for drip and heart and the faint fungus of time. On one wall, red marks that are not animals. Ladders, grids, dots, a snake of lines that threads its way between nothing and something. Are these maps, counts of kills, songs in a language without voice? The first picture may not have been of a thing. It may have been the thing itself, pattern, number, path and idea cut into stone with fire-black fingernails. But that's not all. Pictures changed. Hunting, memory, teaching, and time. A hunt planned in darkness could be rehearsed in ochre by day, where to drive the herd, where to flank, where the ravine narrows into a throat. A child could learn the posture of an animal by tracing the curve of its spine with a coal, over and over, until their eyes could feel the line under the skin of the world. A story could survive when the teller did not. Drawing, then, is an arrow between breath and stone. You exhale an image, the wall inhales it, the wall returns it long after your lungs are dust. The first human who drew did not invent art in a flash. They arrived at it through craft. Grinding stone to powder teaches patience. Sizing pigment with fat teaches chemistry you can taste. Choosing a wall teaches geometry and grace. A line that follows a crack becomes a ridge. A shadow that falls across a bump like a ridge becomes a shoulder. The rock speaks in curves and hollows and you answer, matching its grammar with yours. Drawing is a collaboration with matter. The first artist was a listener. We tend to tell the story in animals, but there were also hands, dots, grids, arrows, ladders, spirals, and signs, whose meanings we can only kiss through glass. Call them entoptic forms, visions the eye produces in certain states, flicker light, trance, migraine, sleep deprivation, or call them the vocabulary of the unsayable. Sometimes a picture does not show what a thing looks like, it shows what thinking feels like. In that sense, the first drawing may have been a record of attention. Here is where my mind stood when the world arrived. Who drew first? Maybe not a who, but a when. When hands, pigment, and a wall met in a mood that wanted more than meat. Maybe a child who wanted to keep a deer after it ran. Maybe a mother who wanted to teach a path with marks instead of words. Maybe a hunter who wanted to rehearse courage by making it visible. Maybe a person who had seen someone die and needed to turn breath into something that did not leave. Grief is a fierce teacher of symbols. So is love. To truly understand how the first picture deepened us, consider what drawing does to time. A line is a captured moment dragged into the next. A sequence of lines is a rehearsal for later. A repeated mark is a ritual that trains attention to move in rhythm rather than panic. Drawing turns seconds into structure. Structure can be shared. Shared structure is culture. There is a straight path from a child's finger in ash to a map, a calendar, a law, a lullaby. We call cave art primitive. It is anything but. The first pictures exploited parallax and curvature to fake motion. They layered generations of edits into one continuous animal. They mixed binders to make pigment bite and last. They used scaffolds to reach ceilings. They painted in halls designed by geology and chosen for acoustics. Clap once in those chambers and sound returns like thunder from a memory you did not know you had. Imagine a painted horse breathing not only with light but with echo. Now it moves when you sing. Art was never only visual. It was a choreography of senses, a ritual of attention, a kind of literacy long before letters. But that's not all. Pictures can wound. To depict an animal is to risk confusing reverence with ownership. To fix a story on a wall is to choose a version and kill the others. To make a symbol is to build a lever that can move minds for love or for a lie. Even the first drawing would have had rules around it. Who may paint, where, and when. What is sacred to trace and what is forbidden. Which colours mean danger, which mean praise. Art teaches power how to whisper. We have always had to learn how not to misuse that whisper. The first human who drew also had to learn how to fail. A line breaks wrong. A smear muddies an eye. A figure refuses to appear. The wall does not forgive, it also does not judge. You grind more pigment, you change the angle, you accept that some animals live better in the rock than in your hand. Practice makes not perfect, but possible. Possibility is the point. Once an image can be made, once it can be taught. Teaching means the dead can place their hands over the living and guide a line they will never see. Consider 3 emotional stories, the ones that reveal why drawing stuck. Story 1. Fear to form. A thunderstorm claws the hills. A child cries each time lightning opens the cave like an eye. An elder kneels beside the child and with charcoal draws the storm as a serpent. He adds eyes, a tongue, a curl that curls into a circle, which is a trap. He then draws a figure with arms raised, not in fear, but in a shape the child recognizes from prayer. The storm becomes a character. The character can be talked to. The child sleeps. Power learned to be spelled, not only felt. Story 2. Absence to presence. A woman loses her brother on the plain. She comes into the cave and draws his hand, just the hand, by pressing her own and blowing pigment around it. The negative print is a man shaped like a hole in light. She touches the outline as if it were his skin. She returns the next day and the next. Grief finds a place to sit, which is another way to say, a person finds a place to live. Story 3. Chaos to choreography. A band has failed at 3 hunts in a row. Food is thin, voices are thin, the air is full of edges. A hunter draws the herd's movement on the wall dots for animals, lines for wind, a box for the choke point, a spiral for the panic turn that always happens too late. Hands gather. The picture teaches faster than words. The next hunt is clean. No one says thank you to the wall. Everyone knows where to look the next time the world frays. But that's not all. Drawing did not live alone. It married rhythm and voice. Marks accompanied chants. Dots matched drum beats. The torch flicker mapped onto the painted herd like a breath over the ribs of a sleeping animal. In those halls, a viewer was a participant. To see was to be joined. If you think the first picture was just a thing to look at, listen harder. It was a tool to make many bodies move as one. Coordination is culture. Pictures tuned us into an instrument. Did the first picture show what was outside or what was inside? Both. The line is a bridge. On one end, hoof, horn, hide, breath, blood. On the other, fear, hunger, memory, awe, intent. Art built a traffic between worlds and trained us to treat ideas like objects handleable, swappable, combinable, teachable. The first human who drew held a thunderbolt in their hand, the power to arrange minds at a distance. It is still lightning, we've only disguised it as a pencil. Here is the turning, the culminating lesson, tragic and instructive. A wall can hold both praise and propaganda. It can teach the young to see what elders saw, or it can lock the young into what elders allow. Some marks may have been forbidden. Some hands may have been kept from pigment. Some animals may have been drawn wrong on purpose to hoard a technique as power. Cultures that paint also choose. Choice creates inside and outside. Art can open a circle or draw a tighter one. We have always had to decide whether a picture is a gift or a gate. Imagine the night of a mistake. A novice draws a sacred animal in a sacred place without permission. The elders erase not by scrubbing, which scars the wall, but by painting over. Lines become shadows. Shadows become a landscape. The animal vanishes under a hill that now exists because shame needed shelter. In the morning the novice is taught, not beaten. The wall keeps its beauty. The community keeps its heart. This is the best version of our history. It is not guaranteed. Drawing gives us the opportunity to handle each other better. It does not force us to. We can't name the first picture maker, but we can sketch their mind. Curiosity tempered by repetition. Reverence for materials, how ochre smooths under a stone, how fat shifts pigment into the skin of rock, how charcoal whispers and then shouts, patience with failure, joy in small accuracies, an eye that looks back, a jaw that finally sits right, a hoof that seems to lift itself, and we can sketch their heart. To draw is to care for what is not here. Care makes a future tense out of breath. If you want a date, the earth gives you several. Marks older than memory, hands older than story, animals older than names. But the calendar is not the point. The point is the why. Why turn blood into colour? Why turn wall into mirror? Why turn a moment into a mark? Because a mark travels. Because a mark returns. Because the ones you love might one day need a picture to remember what living feels like. And yet, look how far the first picture travelled. From cave walls to bark, clay, bone, skin, silk, paper, glass, pixels. From animals to gods to alphabets to blueprints to cartoons to signs that keep people alive on highways and in hospitals. From fear to form to fun to work to warning to worship, all from a line that first pretended to be a back or a hand that pretended to be a hand. The ancestors did not know art the way we do. They knew something harder and better, how to make attention visible. We should also admit the cost of forgetting. Images flood us now. Attention is clipped to seconds. The old rooms of stone were slow. They trained seeing like prayer. If there is a dark history here, it is this. We made a superpower and then learned how to numb ourselves to it. We need to remember the cave to look until a line becomes a decision again. To let a picture be a promise, not background noise. So who was the first human who drew a picture? Someone who chose a wall. Someone who learned the weight of earth mixed with breath. Someone who pressed a hand and then learned the difference between outline and inside. Someone who looked at a running animal and realized that motion could live in stillness. Someone who saw that a mark could be a path between now and later, between this is and let's try, between I was here and you're not alone. Not a genius alone in the dark, a person among people, handing a new verb to a tribe, draw. To truly understand, try this. Hold charcoal, touch a wall. Draw not what you see, but where your seeing stands. Draw your own hand, the ghost of it, the space it leaves when it steps away. Feel how the shape becomes a vow. Feel how the wall becomes a listener. Feel how you become older and future at once. Here is the closing, short and soft. Pictures taught us how to keep each other. They warned, planned, mourned, praised, played. They turned breath into stone and then back into breath. We did not draw to show we could see. We drew to make seeing shareable. And from that small stubborn kindness, this whole bright storm of images. In the end, beginnings are not moments. They are patterns. The first picture is still being drawn each time a hand reaches out, finds a surface, and asks the oldest human question, what will endure if I do this gently enough?